Chapter 522. He saw that under the residue of the exploded pill furnace, there were still sporadic flames leaping about. Just now, no one paid any attention to these flames. Thought they would go out at once. However, upon closer inspection, they discovered that not only were the flames not extinguished, but they were also burning. Instead, it seemed to be wrapped in a layer of gentle silver flames. With the melodious sound of the zither and the burning of the fire, the dregs of the medicine were slowly solidifying. At this moment, it had already begun to take the shape of a pill. He had condensed the core. He had actually condensed a pill. Ding dong! Mu Yang's fingertips turned lightly, and the sound of the zither suddenly became clear and loud. In the next moment, an even more dazzling silver light enveloped the pills, plating them with a layer of silver. Then, a rich and intoxicating medicinal fragrance wafted out. Bit by bit, it seeped into everyone's nostrils and even pores. Hiss! What is this smell? It's so fragrant. I've never smelled a medicinal pill that smells so good. I really want to swallow that pill into my stomach right now. Smelling this medicinal fragrance, I can feel the profound energy in my body boiling. Amidst the rising and falling sounds of discussion, Mu Yang's zither music slowly faded away. The flames in the residue of the cauldron also slowly died out. However, there were more than a dozen silver lights that flew up like meteors and landed in front of Mu Yang. Mu Yang reaches out and grabs it, then slowly spreads it out. Everyone could only see a dozen black pills lying on her palm. There was a deathly silence in the hall, and even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. After a long time, a thunderous applause and exclamations of praise erupted. It's done, it's really done, there's no need for that disgusting Kaiji Yu, it can also be refined into elixirs. Dr. Song and the others are all flushed with excitement, surrounding Muyan in the middle. Just now, they were really breaking out in a cold sweat for Muyan. He was afraid that this young lady with a bright future would really have her meridians destroyed and be tainted by that ugly beast. He had never expected that she would actually refine it into a pill. Furthermore, it was done in such an unimaginable way after the furnace had exploded. Who had ever heard of someone being able to control flames and refine elixirs without a cauldron? When the furnace exploded just now, it really scared this old man to death. I thought you were really going to lose. Dr. Du stroked his beard and said with lingering fear. Yeah. Why did the furnace explode? Facing these seniors who were protecting her, Mu Yang revealed an obedient smile and explained, because the energy contained in my pill refining method is too strong, the bronze cauldron's endurance is too poor, so it could not withstand it, and in the end, it exploded. Was it because the energy contained in the alchemy was too strong? Everyone looked at the exploded bronze cauldron, then looked at Mu Yang, their faces filled with shock. Did this little girl know what she was talking about? This bronze cauldron was the most popular cauldron for alchemy in the market. Even the Tiandao sect used this cauldron for alchemy. How come I've never heard of anyone exploding their cauldron during pill refinement? Just how powerful was the energy contained within? Moreover, refining 5 or 6 pills in a single furnace was already considered a lot. But Muyan? He had clearly blown up the pill furnace, and the pill flame was so small, but he had actually managed to refine more than 10 pills at once. This was simply inconceivable. However, the strange thing was that these pills, which were emitting a rich fragrance just a moment ago, had now become pitch black and looked very ordinary. There was nothing special about them at all. Chapter 523. Then, he looked towards the dumbfounded Shilanling, and the corners of his lips curled up into a light smile. Shixianzi, did you just say that I'm learning alchemy from you? Shilanling's body suddenly quivers, then she glares at Muyan. How is that possible? You clearly don't know how to refine pills. How could you have succeeded in condensing your core? Mu Yang raises her eyebrows. When did I say that I can't refine pills? If you knew how to refine elixirs, how could you have begged me to refine the golden elixir of 9 orifices? Before Muyan could say anything, Han Yi already coolly says, that's because my family's Jun Shong doesn't want madam to work hard, so he randomly found an alchemist to do hard labor. In any case, as long as they paid, would they be afraid that they wouldn't be able to find someone to refine pills for them? It's just that Shushenzi happens to be in the ghost city. It's convenient and cheap to invite her. That's why Jun Shong chose you. Who would have thought? TSK TSK. Cheap goods don't get good stuff. 3 dark cloud spirit flowers actually only produced 1 golden pill of 9 orifices. These words were simply blatantly saying that Shalanling was cheap goods. Shalanling's face alternated between green and white. Her eyes were bloodshot as if she wanted to eat someone alive. Unfortunately, Hanyi doesn't seem to have provoked her enough. He continued, "Oh, that's right. Just now I remember someone praising Fairysh or something. He's only in his early 30s and he already knows alchemy. Hehe, you're already in your 30s. You're already so old. Do you think you're that great at alchemy? Our family's madam is not even 20 years old and can already refine pills. The pills he refined were 100 times better than yours. Some people look at the sky from the bottom of a well, but they still want to show off. Their skin is really thicker than the city walls. You shut up." Shalanling couldn't help but roar. Who does this slut think she is? How could the pills she refined be better than mine? So what if she refined 10 pills? Look at that color and aura, how can it be compared to my Meridian Shield pill? As she spoke, Shalanling slowly calmed down. Her gloomy gaze skims over the elixir in Muyan's hand, then she becomes more and more certain. If it was before this period of time, she might have been a little fearful of the fact that she could only refine 3rd-grade pills at most. But now, after taking the medicine that Liu Se gave her, not only had the white jade purple frost on her body been dispelled, her looks had also become even more beautiful. Even her pill refining abilities had been greatly enhanced. In the past, she had never succeeded in refining a 4th-grade medicinal pill, but today, she easily succeeded. Moreover, it was a middle-grade Meridian Shield pill. Just casually taking it out, it could make Yenwu Continent's practitioners break their heads over it. He doesn't know what trick that slut Jun Muyan used, pretending to refine an elixir. But there are no 4th-grade elixirs on the market, so the elixirs that Jun Muyan takes out are definitely inferior to hers. The person who won in the end was still her, Shalanling. Shalanling took a deep breath and looked at the ghost slave beside her. "What are you waiting for? Go and have a look. What's the grade of the elixir? Don't tell me someone thinks that a dozen or so grade 1 pills can be compared to my grade 4 Meridian Shield pill." This sentence once again made everyone's hearts jump to their throats. That's right, Muyan does refine a lot of elixirs. But in terms of appearance, it was not as dazzling as Shalanling's pill. The only one present who believes in Muyan is Han Yi. Chapter 524. That's because all the effects are contained within the elixir, not even a little bit is exposed. Otherwise, as an immortal from the Shoshen continent, he wouldn't be so thick-skinned as to follow behind Muyan all day long, hoping to ask for one more elixir. The ghost slave quickly steps forward and takes one of the elixirs. He smells it, carefully inspects it, and then frowns. "Ghost King, this slave can't tell what kind of elixir this is, and can't tell what its quality is." The ghost slave looks at Liu Se. This slave has never seen this kind of elixir before. Ha, ha ha. Hearing that, Shalanling immediately bursts into laughter. "Sure enough, Jun Muyan, you really made some trash to fool everyone. Do you really think we're all fools?" Muyan indifferently says, "If he can't tell the quality of the elixir, does that mean that these elixirs are trash? Who does he think he is?" "Page, stop struggling." Shalanling fiercely says, "In the Yenwu continent, even though not everyone can refine pills, everyone knows the pill recipes that are available. Since no one has seen the elixirs that you've refined, and even the ghost slave can't tell the quality, then they must be useless trash." Heh. Muyan lowly laughs, a pair of delicate peach blossom eyes slightly raise, outlining a languid and charming arc, a frog at the bottom of a well, ignorant and inexperienced, but you still have the nerve to bark here. Didn't you want to know whether these elixirs are trash or not? How about I let you see them with your own eyes? Saying that, she leisurely walks forward a few steps. She stops right next to the still unconscious Magistrate Liu. There's only one elixir left in her hand, and she puts it into Magistrate Liu's mouth. At this time, Magistrate Liu is already on the verge of death. The black fog that Liu Se just released to him is the poison smog. And the reason why Magistrate Liu didn't die on the spot like the doctor. It's only because his cultivation is very high. The internal force in his body temporarily withstands the outbreak of the poison smog. But it's just a struggle at death's door. As long as it drags on for another quarter of an hour, he's bound to be like the doctor, his whole body rotting and dying. Seeing Mu Yang's actions, Shalanling stares blankly at first, then she laughs out loud. Jun Mu Yang, you can't be thinking that you can cure the Ghost Wind Valley's poison smog just by relying on that trash pill, right? Do you know that this poison smog has existed for hundreds of years and no one has ever been able to cure it? Don't tell me you've lost your mind because you know you're going to lose. Mu Yang ignores her clamor. After sending the pill into Magistrate Liu's body, she immediately stimulated her internal force, letting the pill take effect in Magistrate Liu's body. On the side, Shalanling and the ghost envoys are still unscrupulously laughing at Muyan. All of a sudden, cries of alarm rang out in the hall. Look at his face. It was Dr. Wang who spoke. His expression was as if he had seen a miracle in the world. The black spots on his face are fading, and his breathing is becoming stable. God! It's cured. The poison smog in his body is really being removed. In a split second, the laughter of Shalanling and the ghost messengers could be heard. It's like a quacking duck suddenly being choked by the throat. Shalanling looks over as if she's seen a ghost. Even if you beat her to death, she wouldn't believe that Jun Mu Yang could really cure the poison smog. Compared to Shalanling, it's Liu Se who's trying to correct her. Chapter 525. But it's slapped away by Muyan. Ghost King Liu, Magistrate Liu's life is related to the outcome of the competition between me and Shixianzi. If you accidentally kill him, wouldn't I lose unjustly? Liu Se glares at her, her rough voice trembling with a hint of disbelief. You cured him. You cured the poison smog. How is this possible? No one is clearer than Liu Se. The poison smog is mixed with the poisonous smoke of the 7-star grass after it is ignited. And this 7-star grass can only be found in the Xiuzhen continent and the Xiuxian continent. Not only does it not exist in the Yanwu continent, there is also no medicine that can restrain the 7-star grass. That's because only elixirs that contain spiritual power could have an effect on the 7-star grass. How could the elixirs that Muyan, a mortal of the Yanwu continent, refine by herself, restrain the 7-star grass? Unless, cough, cough, cough. Violent coughs come from Magistrate Liu's mouth. He slowly opens his eyes and looks around, his face full of confusion. What's going on? Suddenly, a scene flashes through his mind, and his pupils suddenly contract. Didn't I die from the poison smog? Muyan pats his shoulder and stands up. Don't worry, you won't die in a short time. The poison smog in your body has already been dispelled. The expression on Magistrate Liu's face becomes even more bewildered. He stands up, moves his hands and feet, touches his face, and runs his internal force. Then he says in shock, I'm really still alive. And the poison smog in my body is all gone. What's going on? Shinshudaran, did you save me? Muyan doesn't pay attention to him, but looks at Shalanling with a smile that isn't a smile. Shixianzi, do you still think that your elixir is more valuable than mine? Who? All of a sudden, everyone comes back to their senses. Each and every one of them suck in a mouthful of cold air, their expressions aghast. And among them, the ghost envoys of the ghost city are even more panic-stricken, finding it hard to believe. The Ghost Wind Valley's poison smog has existed for hundreds of years, and no one has ever been able to dispel it. Therefore, even if a peak pre-celestial expert enters the Ghost Wind Valley, they could only let the ghost city slaughter them. But today, the Ghost Wind Valley's poison smog was actually broken by someone. Moreover, it was solved by a girl who was not even 20 years old. How could they accept this? Haha. Good job. Well done. Little girl, I didn't misjudge you. Dr. Song vigorously pats Muyan's shoulder, his face is filled with gratification. I didn't expect that you could actually refine an antidote to the poison smog. This elixir is truly 100 times more precious than any other elixir. Ha ha ha. Dr. Du, on the other hand, sneered at Shalanling. Shixianzi, who was the one who said that since you lost, You should obediently carry out the bet. Now that you've lost, isn't it time for you to fulfill the bet and cripple your own meridians? Ha ha ha, that's right, Shishenzi, you were the one who wanted to bet. It can't be that now that you've lost, you want to act shamelessly, right? Shilanling's eyes widen, as if they're about to pop out. Jun Muyan only saved the injured Magistrate Liu. What makes you say that she can cure the poison smog? If a random healing pill can be compared to my 4th grade Meridian Shield pill, wouldn't that be the biggest joke in the world? Chapter 526. Magistrate Liu was stunned at first, then he fiercely clenched his teeth. Without saying a word, he turned around and walked out of the hall. Everyone held their breath as they watched Magistrate Liu walk into the thick fog. He was slowly entangled by the wisps of black fog, and even his whole body was swallowed up. The timid Dr. Wang could not help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. He was afraid that he would hear Magistrate Liu's scream in the next moment. However, after the time it took to brew a cup of tea, everything was as usual. A quarter of an hour passed, but there was still no scream. Soon after, Magistrate Liu swaggered in from outside. Not only was there no fear on his face, but it was also filled with excitement. As soon as he enters the hall, he rushes towards Mu Yang, shouting, "Shenshudaran, this elixir must be consigned for sale in our ghost city. I'll only take half." No, I won't take a single cent. The corner of Mu Yang's mouth twitches. This old man really, he still doesn't forget about the ghost city's business at this time. Should it be said that he had a screw loose in his brain or that he was insensitive? However, right at this moment, a sudden change occurred. Magistrate Liu is about to rush in front of Mu Yang and hug her thighs. Suddenly, a black shadow soared into the sky from the side. It was wrapped in a powerful killing intent, and went straight towards Magistrate Liu. It was a ghost slave. Be careful. Dodge. Despicable and shameless bastard, you actually launched a sneak attack. The doctors cried out in fear. Dr. Song moves forward, wanting to rush over to save Magistrate Liu. However, it was too late. It was too late. In other words, it was fortunate that Dr. Song didn't rush forward, otherwise, he would have been killed by the ghost slave along with Magistrate Liu. Because at this moment, they realized. This ugly and inconspicuous ghost slave actually had the terrifying cultivation of a high-level pre-celestial. At the side, Shilanling slowly raised the corner of her mouth, revealing a sinister smile. As long as Magistrate Liu died, no matter how he died. Jun Muyan's elixir can't be said to be able to cure the poison smog. It could not be said that he was definitely stronger than her. And in this martial arts competition, she would not lose. Bang! In the end, the ghost slave's palm still fell on Magistrate Liu's body. Magistrate Liu's whole body flew out like a kite with a broken string, heavily hitting the table. The heavy mahogany tables and chairs were smashed into pieces like tofu. Even the tables and chairs suffered such an impact. Not to mention Magistrate Liu. For a moment, the complexion of all the doctors was as black as water. They couldn't bear to look at Magistrate Liu's miserable state. Shilanling chuckled softly. Soon after, the laughter becomes louder and louder, sharper and sharper. Jun Muyan, Magistrate Liu is dead, proving that your elixir has no way to restrain the poison smog. In the end, you still lost. You shameless whore. The hot-tempered Dr. Du couldn't hold it in any longer and yelled at Shilanling, "Don't go too far. It was obviously you guys who killed him. What does it have to do with Dr. Jun's pills? How shameless. I didn't expect Shilanling to be such a shameless person." Several of the older doctors were so angry that their chests were heaving up and down. They wanted nothing more than to pounce on Shilanling and tear her to pieces. They had never seen anyone shameless to this extent. Chapter 527. As early as when she had the ghost slave make his move, Shilanling had him hide the poison smog on his body. When she killed Magistrate Liu, she injected the poison smog into his body. In this way, if she says that Magistrate Liu was poisoned to death by the poison smog, then he was poisoned to death. Damn it. Bah, this old man's bones are falling apart. Suddenly, an angry curse comes from the main hall. She sees that Magistrate Liu, who has fallen into the debris of the tables and chairs, is actually spitting as he stands up. Facing Shalanling's dumbfounded face, he can't help but crack open his mouth, revealing a sinister smile. Who told you that this old man is dead? You, how could you not be dead? The ghost slave is even more surprised than Shalanling. His rough and unpleasant voice suddenly rises. That strike of mine just now was with my full power. You've just broken through to pre-celestial. How could you possibly survive? Magistrate Liu moves his arms, spreading his hands. TSK, full power, and that's it. This old man doesn't even have a little injury. I'm very well. Saying that, he returns to the ground and jumps in a circle, very much like an old urchin, very infuriating. How is this possible? How is this possible? Shalanling shakes her head with all her might, then she looks at Muyan. Muyan chuckles lowly, slowly walking to Magistrate Liu's side. She checks that there are no injuries on his body, then withdraws her hand. As if carelessly saying, "Oh, that's right, did I forget to say the name of this elixir?" This elixir is an improved version of the Vein Shield pill. It can resist the poison smog and treat minor internal injuries. Of course, the most important effect is that it can resist an all-out attack from a practitioner below high-level pre-celestial. Her line of sight falls on Shalanling, and she unhurriedly says, "Shishenzi, do you think it's the same Vein Shield pill, your elixir, or mine is better?" The whole audience goes deathly silent. Then a ha 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 ha. Unbridled laughter comes from the doctors' mouths. A few doctors even laughed so hard that tears came out of their eyes. It's actually a Vein Shield pill, it's also a Vein Shield pill. This comparison of effects is simply a slap in the face. Even those highly respected doctors can't help but stroke their beards, laughing especially heartily. And the way they looked at Mu Yang was as if they were looking at a monster. Soon after, as if realizing something, they suddenly clenched the elixirs that Muyan had just given them. It was as if he was holding a rare treasure. This was the Meridian Shield pill that could cure the poison smog. Its value could not be measured with gold coins. Both are Meridian Shield pellets, but one can only block a low-level Xiantian attack, while the other can block a high-level Xiantian attack. Not to mention, Dr. Jun refined 10 Meridian Shield pills in one go, and they also have the effects of resisting the poison smog and healing injuries. Is there still a need to say who wins and who loses in this alchemy competition? Haha. Everyone looked at Shalanling in unison. Shalanling's previously insolent face was now deathly pale and filled with fear. She shook her head furiously as she retreated. No, I didn't lose. I don't want my meridians destroyed. I'm Ghost City's Shishenzi, a famous alchemy genius in Yenwu continent. You can't do this to me. Her frightened voice had not yet fallen. Han Yi's figure suddenly disappears like a ghost. With a swish, blood splatters everywhere. A head flies high up in the sky, and rolls down with a grunt. Chapter 528. Shalanling trembles, lowering her head in horror. She sees the ghost slave's ugly face, stained with blood, falling at her feet. A pair of muddy, bloodshot eyes are staring at her. There's confusion, fear, and the despair that's about to befall her. Ah! Shalanling lets out a mournful scream, falling on her but to the ground. Han Yi just casually wipes the blood on the sword in his hand, sneering, "I said, daring to covet my family's madam, simply courting death." Saying that, he smiles merrily at Liu Se, "Ghost King Liu, I'm sorry, I've directly dealt with your subordinates for you. You won't have any objections, right?" Liu Se's complexion is ashen, but he can't say a word. Han Yi continues, "Then what about this one? Do you want me to continue dealing with it for you?" As he says that, his sword points at Shalanling, who's on the verge of collapse. Liu Se unhurriedly walks over to Shalanling's side. Shalanling raises her head, her face full of hope as she looks at Liu Se. "Ghost King Liu, save me, save me. I don't want my meridians to be crippled, I don't want to become a cripple." Before she could finish speaking, Liu Se's hand presses down on the top of her head. A powerful energy mixed with a cold and gloomy aura suddenly pours down from Shalanling's head. Fut, fut, fut. From Shalanling's body, there's suddenly a sound like a rubber water bag leaking. Soon after, everyone sees that Shalanling's 5 orifices, as well as her skin, are all oozing with blood. No, it's not accurate to say oozing, it should be said that it's shooting out. After a few short breaths, Shalanling weakly collapses, lying in a pool of blood. At this very moment, her meridians aren't just crippled. Even the bones of her hands and feet have been shattered. Even his originally rather outstanding appearance had become riddled with holes, all of which were bloody holes. There's a deathly stillness in the main hall. Even if the doctors didn't like Shalanling a moment ago, seeing her miserable condition at this time, they can't help but be fearful. The dignified Ghost City's fairy, the alchemy genius that everyone in Yenwu continent admires. In just a short moment, she's completely crippled, turning into a lump of rotten flesh that's worse than death. And the one who made the move was Yama King Liu Se, someone who was originally supposed to be on the same side as Shalanling. This Liu Se's heart was so ruthless and dark. Liu Se takes out a silk handkerchief and wipes the hand that had just touched Shalanling's head. A smile appears on her face. I don't know if Miss Jun is satisfied with fulfilling the bet like this. Mu Yang also revealed a smile. But that smile completely didn't reach the depths of his eyes. Ghost King Liu, now that the alchemy competition is over and the bet has been fulfilled, shouldn't you let me take a look at the Ghost King's illness? Of course. Liu Se's eyes flashed with an indecipherable light. Miss Jun has already proven her medical skills. Naturally she is qualified to treat the Ghost Lord. In that case, please follow me, Miss Jun. Without waiting for the others to react, he turned around and walked towards the back of the hall. When the doctors see that Mu Yang wants to follow, they immediately become anxious. Little girl, don't go. This person is so cruel and merciless, I don't know if he wants to harm you or not. Yeah. Look at how ruthless he was to Shalanling. You absolutely cannot trust this person. The Ghost King has nothing to do with you. You don't have to risk your life to save him. Chapter 529. The Ghost Lord naturally isn't related to her. But from Han Yi and Ying Mai's tone, he can tell that this Ghost Lord called Jiu Yu should still be quite close to them. It's only because they're in the Yenwu continent that they can't casually make a move and affect the fate of heaven and earth, so they can only endure and not help. They can't help, but Muyan can. Moreover, she remembers that after the Ghost Lord's body was never seen, the entire Ghost City's resources were all taken by Gong Chenxue. She absolutely can't bear such an ending. So the Ghost Lord, she must save him. Stop. The Ghost Hall's holy land, unauthorized people are not allowed to enter. Muyan follows Liu Se all the way to a palace in the deepest part of the Ghost Wind Valley. But just as she's about to enter, several figures suddenly rush out like ghosts, blocking in front of them. Liu Se seems to have expected such a situation, and unhurriedly says, "Please help inform the Ghost Lord's black and white protectors. This is the Enchantress of Medicine Jun Muyan. I've specially invited her to treat the Ghost Lord." Hearing that, those ghostly men look at Muyan and frown, but they don't say anything. She immediately puts her hand to her lips and blows a strange whistle. As the whistle falls, the palace's door rumbles and opens. A deep and sharp voice comes from inside at the same time. "Come in." Liu Se takes the lead and steps in, with Muyan and Han Yi following behind her. Soon, the scene inside the room comes into view. They see that this is a hall that's several times smaller than the hall where the alchemy competition was just held. But the furnishings in the hall are even more luxurious. There's an empty seat in the middle of the hall, but there are 2 men sitting on each side. The man on the left is dressed in black, and has a rough appearance. The man on the right is snow white, looking somewhat effeminate. That deep and sharp voice just now is coming from them. Muyan has also heard that every Ghost King in the Ghost City will have a pair of black and white ghost messengers. And the Ghost Lord will have a pair of black and white protectors. They are respectively named Black Impermanence and White Impermanence. Although they belong to the Ghost City, they are only loyal to the Ghost Lord. Presumably, these 2 are Ghost Lord Jiu Yu's black and white protectors. Which one is the Enchantress of Medicine Jun Muyan? Muyan steps forward and says with a smile, "This one is Jun Muyan." Seeing how young she looked, the black and white protectors frowned. Liu Se casually finds a place to sit down, faintly saying, "2 law protectors, Don't look at Miss Jun's young age, her medical skills are superb. The elixir she refined defeated Shalanling, and even cured the Ghost Wind Valley's poison smog. It took me a lot of effort to find her and confirm that she is the person most likely to cure the Ghost King. That's why I brought her here. After saying that, Mu Yang and Han Yi look at him strangely, their brows slightly wrinkling. This Liu Se was actually speaking up for her. It could even be said that Liu Se couldn't wait for her to treat the Ghost Lord. Why? Listening to Liu Se's words, the black and white protectors pondered for a while, and finally nodded. You can treat the Ghost Lord, but only you alone can go in. What a joke. Han Yi immediately retorts, what if Miss Jun encounters danger after going in? I must go in with Miss Jun. Chapter 530. Seeing the Dark Lord's token, the black and white protectors' eyes suddenly widen, their faces revealing a struggling expression. But in the end, their loyalty to the Ghost Lord suppresses their reverence and fear towards the legendary Dark Lord. No, the black and white protectors shake their heads. Except for the doctor, no one is allowed to enter the Ghost Lord's holy land. But we can guarantee that the Enchantress of Medicine is absolutely safe inside. I'll go to your holy land. Isn't that the place where that guy Guu sleeps and cultivates? I don't know how many times Laozi has gone in and out of here since hundreds of years ago. When Laozi peed inside, you guys weren't even born yet. Impudent. You dare insult the Ghost Lord. The black and white protectors suddenly stand up, their murderous intent fully revealed. Just then, Liu Se chuckles, Han Yi Daren, what's the hurry? The Ghost Lord's house is a stone room. There are no windows on all sides, only one door. We'll guard outside the door, and no one else can enter. Are you still worried that the Enchantress would be in danger like this? Han Yi still wants to say something, but Mu Yang gently pats him to stop him. Then she gives Liu Se a deep look, and says in a low voice, okay, I agree, I'll go in alone. The heavy stone door closes behind her. Mu Yang slowly walks inside, feeling the wisps of spiritual power gushing out from the ground. Her mind immediately comes to a realization. No wonder this place is called the Ghost Hall's Holy Land. It turns out that there's a spiritual vein buried underneath this stone house. Although this spiritual vein is very thin, only wisps of spiritual power seeping out. But cultivating next to this spiritual vein, a martial practitioner's advancement speed would be several times faster than usual. The cave that Mu Yang found on Nameless Mountain that day also hid such a spiritual vein. But it's far from being as thick and pure as this spiritual vein in the Holy Hall of the Ghost Hall. When Mu Yang found that spiritual vein, she only thought that cultivating internal force next to it would increase a lot faster. But now that her body has formed a spiritual root, she knows. The most precious thing about a spiritual vein isn't that it allows a martial practitioner to absorb more internal force. Instead, it's that there are wisps of spiritual energy seeping out here, which are unique in the Yenwu continent. If one cultivates next to a spiritual vein for a long time, even one's root bone would slowly improve. In her previous life, this spiritual vein might also fall into Gong Chenshue's hands. Mu Yang frowns slightly. She crouches down and gently touches the bluestone floor. When his palm touched the ground, he felt that the spiritual energy flowing in was even richer and purer. It simply made her feel indescribably comfortable. His meridians and dantian seemed to have been cleansed. This is different from the spiritual power in the Tianmo Qin space. The spiritual power in the Tianmo Qin space can only be used for alchemy. He wanted to use it to cultivate, but for some reason, he was unable to absorb it. What a pity. If only I could always bring the spiritual vein with me to cultivate. Mu Yang muttered regretfully. In this way, her spirit cultivation level might also be able to grow like mystic cultivation. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a sudden change occurred. Suddenly, the dim stone room, which was only lit by candlelight, suddenly lit up with a resplendent light. The melodious sound of the zither echoed in the enclosed space. Mu Yan looks up in astonishment, only to see that her Tianmo Qin has unexpectedly flown out on its own. As it played, it emitted a sparkling white light. Chapter 531. Then, the ground beneath them trembled. Countless white lights, like dense fireflies, fly towards the glowing Tian Mo Qin. Mu Yang looks at this scene dumbfoundedly, and subconsciously reaches out to touch the firefly-like specks of light. When the light touched her skin, she felt a comfortable spiritual power flowing through her body. It was so comfortable that she almost wanted to sigh. What was going on? Why does it look like the Tian Mo Qin is absorbing this spiritual vein? But since when could spirit veins be absorbed in a short period of time? Isn't this a little too inconceivable? Mu Yan's figure swayed and disappeared from where she stood, entering the space. As soon as she entered, Xiaobao ran over and hugged her thigh. His usually cold voice contained a bit of surprise. Mother, look, the space has changed. Yes, the space had changed. A hill had appeared in front of the originally lush green plains. On the hill, hundreds of flowers bloomed, and on the flowers, dots of light overlapped, as if embellishing a galaxy. It was indescribably beautiful. Little Bao stared at the Milky Way, his big eyes flashing. Mother, the smell coming from there smells so good. Mu Yang takes a deep breath, the shock on her face slowly turns into ecstasy. Of course it smelled good, because it was clearly the aura of a spirit vein. Heavens! The spirit vein of the Ghost Hall's Holy Land was actually absorbed by the Tian Mo Qin. It even appeared directly in the space. Holding Xiaobao's hand, Mu Yang slowly approaches. As the distance between him and the spirit vein shortened, the feeling of his body being cleansed and nourished became more and more obvious. His dried-up dantian excitedly absorbed the rich spiritual energy, which then flowed through his meridians. At that moment, Mu Yang actually felt that her spiritual power cultivation had advanced. However, she was completely clueless about the spirit cultivation system, so she had no idea what level her cultivation had reached. But that didn't stop her from being in a good mood. If it wasn't for the fact that this was the wrong place and that she had to treat the Ghost King, she would have sat down cross-legged to cultivate immediately. After making arrangements for Xiao Bao to cultivate next to the spiritual vein, Mu Yang flashes out of the space. At this moment, the dazzling light had disappeared without a trace. The entire stone chamber returned to its original darkness. The candlelight flickered not far away, illuminating the only bed in the entire room. The Ghost King was lying on that bed. The Ghost King Jiu, also known as the Ghost Emperor, is the de facto controller of the Ghost City. In the Yanwu continent, this is a person who can call the wind and summon the rain, a person whom ordinary practitioners revere and look up to. But now, he was lying alone in the cold stone room. Mu Yang slowly walks to the bedside. The moment she sees the person on the bed, she jumps in fright. The man on the bed was motionless, his body stiff. His face was purple under the candlelight. This doesn't look like a living person, right? At this moment, the person lying on the bed suddenly opened his eyes. His grayish-white eyes were unfocused. The greenish-gray lips parted slightly, as if it was breathing, but also as if it wanted to speak. He could move, open his eyes, and breathe. This should be a living person. But Mu Yang still feels very strange. She grabbed the Ghost King's hand and placed it on his wrist. The pulse throbbed strongly under her fingers. However, Mu Yang frowned deeply. Why was this pulse so strange? He was clearly breathing and had a pulse, but his entire body exuded an aura of death. He was about to send in his qi to carefully examine the Ghost King's illness. Chapter 532. Suddenly, her complexion greatly changes, and she quickly retreats. But she's still a step too late. The fingernails of the hand that she's taking her pulse on suddenly lengthens, ruthlessly grabbing at her body. The black, smelly fingernails tear through the clothes on her shoulders, piercing into her skin. 3 bloody marks on her snow-white shoulder appear so glaring. Mu Yan turns to look at the wound. The 3 bloodstains were dyed black in the blink of an eye. A numbing pain instantly spreads from her shoulder to her whole body. This is corpse poison. TSK, your reaction is really fast. Originally, my Corpse King's fingernails should have directly pierced your heart, dug it out, and let me taste it. A rough voice comes from the corner. Soon after, the wall next to the bed rumbles loudly, separating to the 2 sides. Liu Se's figure slowly walks out from inside. The candlelight shines on her wrinkled and pitted face. Coupled with her difficult and unpleasant laughter, it's particularly frightening. But it doesn't matter. You've already been poisoned by my corpse king's corpse poison. When it flares up later, you'll still be fish on my chopping block, and I'll taste it as I please. Muyen's cold eyes fall on her, but there's no panic in her expression. She quickly takes out a bottle of draught from the space, and pours it on the wound. Then she swallows another elixir. Internal force and spiritual power circulates together, and the numbness and stiffness in her body disappears. But this corpse poison is very powerful, and she can't completely remove it for a while. She can only force it to a certain part of her body. Liu Se stares at her series of actions, and the hatred in her eyes slowly turns into greed. Jun Muyen, tell me, why do you have spiritual power? Why can you refine real elixirs? And what kind of magic tool is the zither that you use to refine elixirs? If you obediently answer all my questions, I might leave you an intact corpse. Liu Se's original purpose in coming to the Ghost Wind Valley is naturally to avenge her pretty boy, Xianji. She wants to hack Jun Muyen into 1,000 pieces. However, when she saw Jun Muyen's alchemy technique, and saw the mysterious Di Mingju, Han Yi, and the others attach great importance to Jun Muyen, Liu Se slowly realizes that this woman's body hides a great secret. This secret might even give her the opportunity to return to the Shoshen continent and return to the Tianyi men. That's right, Liu Se and Xianji are the same, originally residents of the Shoshen continent. Because he did something wrong, he was expelled by Tianyi men. However, unlike Xianji had his immortal bone removed. But Liu Se was poisoned with the most dreadful Jiyu poison of the Tianyi men. Liu Se has already been banished to the Yanwu continent for over 100 years. Due to the effects of the parasite, she became uglier and uglier. Her body was riddled with holes, and she looked neither human nor ghost. She had long since given up hope of returning to the Shoshen continent. But seeing Jun Muyen today, hope finally ignites in her heart. Because in Liu Se's heart, there was a bold conjecture. Muyen sneers, but doesn't answer her question. Instead, she says unhurriedly, Ghost King Liu has something to ask me. It just so happens that I also have something to ask Ghost King Liu. When I saw Shi Lanling concoct pills today, I felt it was very strange. With her level, it was impossible for her to concoct a 4th-rank Meridian Shield pill. Moreover, the Meridian Shield pill actually contained the aura of spirit power. Chapter 533. If I haven't guessed wrong, you should have made Shi Lanling take a special kind of GU a few days ago, making her think that she had detoxified the poison of the white jade purple frost, and that her alchemy skills had also increased. But she didn't know that every time she did alchemy, this GU gnawed on her blood essence. This GU gave Shi Lanling a temporary beauty and a powerful alchemy ability, and you used Shi Lanling's ability to be stimulated for a short period of time to refine the medicine that poisoned the Ghost Lord, turning him into the living dead he is today, or rather, your puppet. Ghost King Liu, am I right? Clap, clap, clap. Liu Se's face is full of admiration as she applauds, truly worthy of being the Enchantress of medicine, being able to guess so much just by relying on these little clues. I really can't help but admire you. However, so what if you've guessed it? Now that you've been poisoned by my corpse poison, no one will come into this stone room to save you. Hey. I advise you to obediently let yourself be captured, lest you suffer even more. Muyen raises her hand, and the Tianmo Qin suddenly appears in her hand. Under the candlelight, the beautiful little face lifts up into an unruly and willful smile. In the end, who will suffer even more? How would you know if you don't try? Clang. The strings vibrate, and countless wind blades shoot towards Liu Se like a rain of arrows. Liu Southeast stands in her place, not moving an inch. But the Ghost Lord Yu rushes over like a gust of wind. His black fingernails lengthen again. A rotten stench, accompanied by a formidable pressure and impact, hits her in the face. That's a fighting strength that far surpasses the peak pre-celestial. It's as if the entire space of the stone room has been turned upside down by Yu. And Muyen is like a small boat in the middle of the ocean, about to be overturned at any time. This is a suppression of strength that transcends several levels. It's not something that can be surpassed by relying on talent and skills. Looking at Muyan's distressed appearance under Jiu-Yu's attack, Liu Se bursts into laughter. Jun Muyan, at your age, you're actually able to reach the high level of pre-celestial cultivation. I admit that your talent really shocks me. But that's all. In the eyes of the people of our Shoshen continent, you creatures of the Yenwu continent are, at best, just a little higher than ants. Or do you think that with your current cultivation, you can really defeat my Corpse King? Do you know how much Ghost King Jiu-Yu's cultivation was originally higher than yours? Even though he has now become a corpse soldier, his cultivation has been preserved, and he is no longer restricted by the spatial barrier. Do you really think you can win? Mu Yang's current situation was indeed very bad. Ever since her rebirth, this was the first time she felt that her life was in danger. At this time, Jiu-Yu was like a zombie. He was not afraid of pain or injury, but his movements were extremely nimble. Mu Yang's sound blade attack has already reached the level of 100 blades, but Jiu-Yu doesn't need to dodge. The distance between them was getting shorter and shorter. Bang! Mu Yang is unable to dodge in time, and Jiu-Yu's fist heavily hits her shoulder. A sharp pain came from his shoulder. He could even hear the sound of bones breaking. Mu Yang's complexion suddenly turns deathly pale. Jiu-Yu had already turned his fist into a palm. His black fingernails suddenly stretch out, a cold glint flickering as it goes straight for her heart. In the nick of time, the Tianmo Qin is lifted up, blocking the palm. Chapter 534. The Tianmo Qin was unscathed, but Jiu-Yu transmitted a powerful attack through the sound of the qin. But it makes Muyan suddenly spit out a mouthful of blood. The scalding blood falls on the strings of the zither, causing the Tianmo Qin to make a buzzing sound. Muyan only feels that everything in front of her is a blur. Her whole body, whether it's her meridians, dantian, or qi-si, is burning with pain. Xiao Bao's heart-wrenching screams seemed to be ringing in his ears. Mother, mother, let me out, let me out. The small body kept hitting the spatial wall, trying to rush out. But, no, no. Mu Yang fiercely bites the tip of her tongue, forcing herself to calm down. She couldn't fall, she couldn't lose. If she fell, she wouldn't be the only one to die. Xiao Bao, who was in the space, would also die. The moment she was reborn, she swore that she would protect her baby for the rest of her life. She would never let her baby get hurt. Muyan staggers to her feet, her hands tightly gripping the Tianmo Qin. The blood on the strings seeped into the body of the zither bit by bit. His blood, which should have been cold after such a long time, became boiling hot at this moment. Muyan's eyes are scarlet as she stares at Jiu-Yu. She wanted to win. She would never allow her baby to be alone. You want to become stronger? Suddenly, she heard a deep and rich voice. The voice seemed to come from the void. It seemed to come from the depths of her soul. It was a strange yet vaguely familiar voice. You want to become the supreme existence of the three realms? Muyan's pupils slightly contract, and she silently says three words in her heart, Tianmo Qin. Yes, this is the sound of the Tianmo Qin. Once in the Shun musician's space of inheritance, she had also faintly heard it. When the spiritual roots were being reconstructed in Jin Wangfu, there was also a vague echo of this voice. But it had never been as clear as it was now. That old, thick, and seductive voice echoed in his mind over and over again. Do you want to become stronger? If you want to become a supreme king, then offer your flesh and blood to me, offer your soul to me. I will take your place and protect you. From now on, you will be high and mighty, invincible. Rip. Jiu-Yu's black armor once again tears Muyan's clothes. The wound on his back was so deep that his bones could be seen. The corpse poison that he had suppressed earlier was stirring in his dantian, as if it was on fire. Muyan's consciousness is getting more and more fuzzy. But Xiao Bao's heart-wrenching cries and the Tianmo Qin's enticing voice are getting louder and louder. If she dedicates her soul to the Tianmo Qin, she can obtain supreme power. If she lets the Tianmo Qin control her body, she'll be able to survive and protect Xiao Bao. Muyan's lips move, as if she wants to say something. All of a sudden, a frantic voice seemed to come from the horizon. Mother is the most awesome. Xiaobao loves mother the most, Jun Muyan, you are destined to be my Di Ming Ju's wife. His eyes, which were dyed red, suddenly flashed with a glaring light. Because of the pain, his figure is hunched over, supporting the Tian Mo Qin that is dripping with blood, and slowly stands up. Tian Mo Qin, I'll say it again. I am your master. Stop trying to seduce me, control me, and replace me. Her slender, blood-stained fingers gently stroked the strings of the instrument. Chapter 535. Tian Mo Qin, now, tell me your choice. Buzz buzz buzz. The blood-stained Tian Mo Qin makes a sound of unwillingness and longing. But in the end, under Muyan's resolute and powerful mind, the voice slowly disappeared. Then, there was a sudden deafening sound of the zither. The entire stone room seemed to shake violently because of the sound of the zither. Liu Se only felt the blood in her body churning, and then she discovered to her horror that she had unexpectedly lost control of the corpse King Jiu. What happened? Jun Muyan, what did you do? She looked as far as she could. The unremarkable black zither that Mu Yang had just grasped in her hand suddenly lit up with a bright light. The bloodstains on the zither's body had completely disappeared. Luster circulated around the zither, as if it was carved out of the most precious and beautiful ancient jade in the world. Little girl, listen carefully to me. What I'm forcibly opening for you now is the third realm of the Shun musician, Broken Moon. On the Yenwu continent, you can skip levels and master a Shun musician's level 3 skill. If you still lose like this and cause my true self to be sealed again, I will definitely destroy your soul and send you to hell forever. At this moment, the Tian Mo Qin's voice carries a trace of exasperation. But strangely, it was no longer old and deep. Instead, it sounded like a young man's voice. But at this time, Mu Yang couldn't care less. Because in the split second when the voice in her mind fades away, a powerful energy bursts out from the hand holding the Tian Mo Qin. At that moment, she felt as if her meridians and dantian were about to explode. Intense pain spread throughout her body. In just a few breaths of time, her entire body was soaked in cold sweat. Then, a ding sounded in his mind. A Shun musician's skill that she has never seen before appears in her mind. 7 Swords Spirits. The only close combat skill of a Shun musician below the 3rd level. Zither strings transform into swords, all spirits return to origin. Once the skill is activated, the 7 strings of the Tian Mo Qin turn into 7 swords, revolving around Muyan. Driven by spiritual power, the sound of the Guqin automatically assisted. Retreat to defend, advance to attack. Ever since she obtained the Shun musician inheritance, Muyan has been practically invincible in the Yenwu continent. But Mu Yang herself knows that there is a fatal flaw in the Shun musician skills that she has mastered. Only long-range attacks, no close-range combat. It's just that in the past, the opponents she's encountered are all mediocre. She doesn't need to use her Shun musician skills to defeat them. That was why this weakness was not exposed. And now, she had finally made up for her last weakness. Muyan's complexion is pale, but the corner of her mouth slowly hooks up into a disdainful smile, making such a big scene, but only opening a 3rd-level skill for me. Tian Mo Qin, can you be any more stingy? Red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, purple, 7 swords of different colors floated around Mu Yang. The swords around Mu Yang trembled in unison, as if in protest. However, Mu Yang sneered and ignored him. With a light wave of her hand, one of them flew into her hand. Just at this moment, Jiu receives Liu Se's command. Letting out a beast-like roar, he once again rushes over. The sword in his hand shot out. Jiu's figure nimbly dodged, his long fingernails bringing along a swift and fierce wind as they whizzed over. However, the next moment, clang. In front of the black fingernails, a purple sword appeared, effortlessly blocking Jiu's attack. Chapter 536. A mournful roar resounds throughout the stone room. The 6 swords directly penetrate Jiu's body, but they don't stop. Instead, they tremble and ignite clusters of flames. It's precisely because of these raging flames that the originally unconscious Jiu lets out a painful wail. Liu Se stares at this scene in shock, her face filled with horror. Mu Yan waves her hand, and the 6 swords fly out from Jiuyu's body, circling around her once again. Jiuyu, who was seemingly invincible just a moment ago, is now kneeling on the ground, unable to get up. Mu Yan's line of sight slowly turns to Liu Se, the corners of her mouth lightly lifting. Ghost King Liu, now, it's your turn. Liu Se suddenly comes back to her senses, a pair of eyes that look like they're about to pop out, unwaveringly glaring at Mu Yan. You're a Shun musician. You're really a Shun musician. There's no mistake. That zither just now was clearly the 3 realms treasure, the Tianmo Qin. And that powerful zither attack just now that could even kill Jiuyu, there's nothing else besides a Shun musician's skill. Jun Mu Yan, she really is a Shun musician descendant. The Shun musician that the 3 realms feared and hunted down, that once made the 3 realms tremble with fear. Mu Yan's eyes slightly narrow, not saying anything. But in her heart, she's already made up her mind that she must kill Liu Se here. She clearly remembers what Bailey Yinlu said. Before she becomes strong, her identity as a Shun musician must not be known to anyone. Otherwise, she's afraid that it would be a terrible disaster. However, just as she's about to activate the 7 swords, she suddenly feels a burning pain in her dantian. The meridians of her whole body become empty, as if all the energy has been sucked out in an instant. Immediately after, the 7 swords that were originally circling around her suddenly disappear without a trace. Mu Yan is dumbfounded, asking in her heart, "What's going on?" The Tianmo Qin's hateful voice reaches her ears. "What do you think is going on? With your current spiritual power, it's already a miracle that you can support the 7 swords to launch a wave of attacks. Now that your spiritual power has been exhausted, the 7 swords will naturally disappear. What kind of joke is this? Mu Yan simply wants to curse. This is a matter of life and death, and you're telling me that the 7 swords have lost their effectiveness. In the end, you gave me such a lousy skill." The Tianmo Qin's voice is even more exasperated than her. "You dare to despise this sage?" Mu Yang is about to retort sarcastically. On the other side, Liu Se seemed to have noticed something. She laughed lowly. "Your spiritual power, there is no way for you to use that powerful move just now? Ha 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 ha." Her low and deep laughter becomes coarse and unbridled. "This is only natural. In the Yenwu continent, you can't absorb spiritual power, and you simply can't replenish the consumed spiritual power. That's why even I had no choice but to abandon my spiritual power and cultivate the more powerful devil qi instead. Shun musician, I didn't expect that I would be so lucky to meet a descendant of the Shun musicians in the Yenwu continent. I believe that as long as I bring your corpse back to the Shoshen continent, Master will definitely forgive me and let me become the high and mighty immortal I once was." As if thinking of a beautiful future, Liu Se's entire face smiled with incomparable joy. However, her ugly appearance made her face look sinister and terrifying. She slowly pulled out a steel whip. Chapter 537. However, it wasn't bronze in color. Instead, it was pitch black and emitted a cold, fishy smell. Liu Se swung the whip towards the ground, and the steel whip immediately extended, splashing sparks on the ground. Mu Yang looked at the ground with an ugly expression. Because in the instant it swept across the floor, the blue stone in the room was corroded into a long and deep trench. It could even corrode limestone, let alone humans. Jun Mu Yan, as an insignificant mortal of the Yenwu continent, to die in my Tianyi men's Liu Se's hands today is your greatest honor. As soon as he finished speaking, the steel whip immediately issued a popping sound and suddenly extended. It wriggles towards Mu Yan like a viper. Mu Yan wants to operate her internal force and spiritual power to resist, but she suddenly feels a burst of pain in her qi and dantian. She clenches her teeth and forcibly activates the Tianmo Qin. The sound of the zither lingered in the air, and a sound wall soared into the sky. Divine Hand's Weave was activated. The steel whip struck the sound wall and returned without success. But at the same time, Mu Yang, who had exhausted all of his spirit energy and profound qi, also swayed and almost fell down. Liu Se didn't give her any chance to catch her breath. The steel whip came back again. This time, the steel whips turned into countless whips in the air, falling down like a torrential rain. The sound barrier of divine hands weave was on the verge of collapsing under this unbridled attack, as if it would shatter at any moment. Muyin clenches her teeth. There's not a trace of blood on her face. Tian Mo Qin, can you hear my voice? She asks with her consciousness. What answered her was a disdainful snort. However, Mu Yang did not care about its attitude, and instead said in a low voice, if I can't hold on any longer, help me protect Xiaobao's life. Why should I? The Tian Mo Qin's voice hasn't yet fallen when the sound wall constructed by the divine hands weaving the heavens collapses with a loud bang. The earth-shattering whip shadows ruthlessly fall towards Muyin. It was as if the tip of his nose could already smell the rancid odor of the steel whip that had been soaked in blood and corpses for many years. Mu Yang closes her eyes in despair. However, the expected pain did not come. However, her body was suddenly pulled into a familiar and wide embrace. The hands that were hugging her tightly held her in his embrace, like a pair of iron pincers, not letting her have the slightest separation. But the body pressed against her was trembling slightly, a sign of how nervous and afraid the owner of the body was. Mu Yang's lips trembled slightly. He slowly raised his head and saw a familiar face. Di Mingju. Her hoarse voice is tinged with hope, with joy, and with a grievance that even she herself isn't aware of. The person who has come is Di Mingju, who has rushed over at the last moment. His eyes were slightly red as he looked at the girl in his arms, who was covered in cuts and bruises. For the first time, his indifferent face showed a mixture of heartache and regret. He had actually allowed his girl to be hurt like this. Even if his consciousness briefly returns to the polar domain in order to confirm that Muyin's identity as a Shun musician hasn't been discovered. Yang, it's me. Before his hoarse voice could leave his mouth, he was pressed down by a slender blood-stained finger. Muyin struggles to get up from his embrace, a disdainful and wanton smile hooks up on her pale and bloodless little face. Sure, Di Mingju, don't say that you didn't protect me well. I don't like to hear it. Chapter 538. If you really want to walk down this path with me, then try to respect me. Let me grow and become stronger on my own, until one day I can stand shoulder to shoulder with you. Instead of building a warm and safe cage of gold threads for me, you claimed that you were protecting me. Di Mingju stares at her in a daze for a long time, before finally pulling her into his arms. The body of the girl in his arms was covered with cuts and bruises, and there was a strong smell of blood coming from her. But he was so infatuated with her, so deeply in love that he was unable to extricate himself. Because of his deep love, Di Mingju knows better than anyone else that as the successor of the Shun musicians, Muyin must experience trials and tribulations, and become stronger little by little. Otherwise, no matter how big the world is, there will be no place for her. Because of his deep love for her, even if he was so afraid that she would be hurt, and wanted to tie her to his side, protect and pamper her, he still couldn't do whatever he wanted. Just like that, the two of them quietly embraced each other as if they had forgotten about time and space. Then, countless steel whips covered the sky and covered the earth again with a fierce killing intent. Di Mingju's eyes turn cold, his handsome face as cold as 10,000 years of ice. He doesn't even move his hand that's holding Muyin. He snapped his fingers lightly. In an instant, the room was filled with the sound of ka. Mu Yang raised his head in shock, only to see that the whip shadows that filled the sky were all frozen in midair. And that cold ice was still spreading in Liu Se's direction. Ah! Liu Se screamed, desperately trying to throw away the steel whip. But it was still too late. The ice seemed to have a life of its own as it quickly climbed onto her hand. In a short span of a breath, it had spread to her entire body. Muyin stares dumbfoundedly at the woman who has just driven her into a hopeless situation. With a light snap of Di Mingju's fingers, he turns into an ice sculpture. Oh, calling it an ice sculpture was not entirely correct. Because Liu Se's whole body was sealed in ice, but her head was still exposed outside. His teeth chattered as if he wanted to say something, but he could only make gurgling sounds. Mu Yang suddenly feels a little depressed. An enemy that no one could defeat no matter how hard they fought, was defeated by someone else with just a finger. He definitely couldn't be happy. But before she could say anything, Her chin was already locked by someone. The man's fiery kiss fell. This pervert, bastard. At a time like this, he only remembered to take advantage of others. But very quickly, Mu Yang discovers that she has wronged Di Mingju. This was because as the man's kiss landed, the cold and burning corpse poison in his dantian seemed to be drawn by a powerful force and flowed up along his meridians. In the end, it blends between her and Di Mingju's lips and teeth, and disappears without a trace. Mu Yang, she used elixirs and drafts, but she couldn't get rid of the corpse poison. Di Mingju solved it with just a kiss. It was even more depressing. Who knew that a man's deep and low voice would reach her ears? Yang Yang, what you just said, does it mean that you're willing to marry Ben Jun? What did he just say? Muyan stares blankly for 3 seconds before she remembers what she just said. If you really want to be with me, then try to respect me and let me grow and become stronger on my own, until one day I can stand shoulder to shoulder with you. Wait, that's just an example. Chapter 539. Marriage. The wedding is on the agenda. What the hell? Who likes you and wants to marry you? Di Mingju, don't talk to yourself. I already said that it was just an analogy. The rest of the voice is once again blocked by a scorching kiss. When the kiss ends, Muyan ruthlessly punches the man's chest. Nyangqin, Nyangqin. At this time, she hears Xiao Bao's call again. Muyan is startled, and promptly releases Xiao Bao and the fat rabbit from the space. Just as she releases the control of the space, Xiao Bao's body rushes into Muyan's arms. The child, who has always been mature like a little adult, cries for the first time in a heartbreaking manner, choking with sobs. Nyangqin is bad. Boo-hoo-hoo, Nyangqin is bad. Xiao Bao hates Nyangqin. Boo-hoo-hoo. He's clearly saying those hateful words, but his little arms are tightly hugging Muyan's neck, not willing to let go for even a moment. The tears that didn't fall when she was in the most desperate situation, the tears that didn't fall when Di Mingju rushed over to save her by a hair's breadth. But at this moment, it bursts like a dam. Muyan tightly hugs her son's soft little body, her voice choking. Xiao Bao, I'm sorry, it's Nyangqin's fault, making you worry. Xiao Bao's head is tightly buried in the crook of her neck, his little body constantly twitching. Hot tears flow down her neck and onto her skin, scalding her whole heart to the point of aching. Mu Yang wants to lift her baby son's face, to see if his eyes are swollen from crying. But Xiao Bao hugs her neck and doesn't let go. For the first time, he willfully doesn't cooperate with Muyan's actions, doesn't listen to her words. Even if Di Mingju says from the side, how can a man cry at the slightest provocation? Normally, Xiao Bao would obediently let go of Muyan if he was provoked. But this time, it's as if he didn't hear it, refusing to lift his head. Muyan softly breathes out, her expression indescribably sour and soft. Suddenly, she lets out a low moan. This sound is like an order. Xiao Bao, who was originally unwilling to lift his head no matter what, suddenly raises it, revealing a pair of red eyes from crying and a small face covered in tears. Xiao Bao didn't care how disheveled he looked and asked anxiously, "Mother, what's wrong?" Mu Yang frowns slightly and gently wipes away the tears on Xiao Bao's face. She says softly, "Nyangqin's injuries haven't healed yet, so it's a little painful. Xiao Bao will help Nyangqin apply the medicine, okay?" Xiao Bao sniffled and said nothing. Although he was young, he was very smart. At this time, he already knew that this was Muyan's deliberate cry of pain. But when he sees the wound on his mother's back, his big blue eyes are once again filled with tears. He gritted his teeth and nodded, forcing himself not to let his tears fall. "Mother, it hurts." "Xiao Bao, help mother apply medicine." Muyan's heart feels like it's soaked in a hot honey pot, sour, soft, and sweet. She takes out the draft, and Xiao Bao immediately takes it, carefully pouring it on the wounds on Muyan's back and shoulders. The stimulation of the medicine entering the wound makes Mu Yang frown slightly and let out a low groan. She immediately hears a nervous voice, one big and one small, "Nyangqin Yang Yang, how are you? Does it hurt a lot?" Xiao Bao moves his little head over, pouts his lips, and gently blows. Nyangqin doesn't hurt. Xiao Bao blows, it hurts so much that it flies. Muyan's gaze softens, as if it's about to melt. Chapter 540. Who would have thought that Xiaobao would remember it all this time, given how young he was back then? Being able to obtain a treasure like Xiaobao in this life, she had no regrets in her previous and current lives. Just as he was thinking, Xiaobao's little head was suddenly pushed away by a big hand. Immediately after, a gentle kiss falls on her slowly healing wound, and the man's deep and husky voice reaches her ears. Yang Yang, it doesn't hurt, it'll be fine if your husband kisses you. Mu Yang, what kind of bad luck did she have in this life to actually meet this shameless guy? Xiaobao angrily pushes Di Mingju away and hugs Mu Yan's neck. Nyangqin is Xiaobao's. You're not allowed to snatch it. Di Mingju sneers. Jun Morchen, do you want Ben Jun to use my strength to tell you who Mu Yan is? The big and the small stared at each other. Just as they were about to make a scene, the door of the stone chamber suddenly opened. Han Yi rushes in like his flying, his mouth shouting, Miss Jun, what happened just now? You're fine. Jun, why are you here? With quick reflexes, Mu Yang shoves Xiaobao and the rabbit back into the space. The black and white protectors also rushed in. Seeing the scene in front of them, they were also dumbfounded. Who are you people? How can you enter my ghost hall's holy land? Ghost King Liu? How did you get in here? As they spoke, their gazes turned and finally landed on the Ghost King's body, which was riddled with holes and covered in blood. The two of them rushed to the Ghost King like a whirlwind, their faces filled with anxiety. Ghost King? Demon King, what happened to you? However, when their hands touched the tip of Jiuyu's nose, they discovered that he wasn't breathing at all, and immediately became alarmed and angry. Who? Who killed Ghost King? The black and white protectors' eyes were bloodshot as they glared at everyone present. It was as if they wanted to kill someone. Bang! Suddenly, the ice wrapped around Liu Se shattered with a loud rumble. She fell to the ground, panting heavily. Mu Yang and Di Mingju's gazes are drawn over. Di Mingju slightly raises his eyebrows, as if he didn't expect that Liu Se would actually be able to break free from the ice. However, even though she managed to break free from the ice, she also paid a painful price. Her arms were severed at the shoulder and fell to the ground, turning into powder. But because of the cold, not much blood flowed out. But the despair and pain of her broken arm makes her eyes burn red, and she glares at Mu Yan and Di Mingju. It's them. He. They killed the Ghost King. He. I was worried about the Ghost King, so I came in to take a look. He. I saw them attacking the Ghost King. They didn't even let me off. He. While shivering, Liu Se gnashed her teeth and roared, Black and white protectors, quickly gather everyone in the Ghost Wind Valley, to these villains, kill without mercy. He. When the black and white protectors heard this, their eyes widened in anger. They don't even have the time to think about why Liu Se can appear in this stone room. They just roar and rush towards Mu Yan. However, Di Mingju is by Mu Yan's side. How could he allow anyone to hurt her? Black impermanence and white impermanence had gathered all of their profound chi to attack, but it seemed as if they had hit an invisible barrier. With a bang, he was directly bounced back. The two of them looked at each other, their faces bursting with hatred. Suddenly, the black impermanence let out a sharp whistle from the corner of his lips. Chapter 541. Mu Yang stands unsteadily, her body slanting to the side, but she suddenly bumps into Di Mingju's embrace. The man's warm and firm skin is tightly pressed against her through the thin fabric. A warm and moist breath enters her ear, carrying a lingering and ambiguous aura. The candlelight goes out because of this sudden change. When you can't see your own fingers in front of you, it always makes people flustered. But Mu Yang doesn't care about anything. That's because this shameless man beside her actually takes advantage of the moment when the light disappears, and directly kisses her lips. There's a rumbling sound, and the stone chamber finally stops falling. Jun Shong, are you and Miss Jun all right? Han Yi's concerned voice reaches her ears. Since you've killed the Ghost Lord, then all of you will be buried together with the Ghost Lord in this underground palace of the Ghost Hall. The black and white protectors' hysterical voices, filled with hatred, reverberate throughout the stone chamber. Then the light brightens, illuminating everyone's faces. Liu Se's pride and madness, the black and white protector's hatred, the Ghost Lord's lifeless ash-grey complexion, and Han Yi's worry, every fine detail is revealed. Seeing that Mu Yang and Di Mingju are unharmed, Han Yi breathes a sigh of relief. But he suddenly asks strangely, "Miss Jun, why is your face so red?" Mu Yang doesn't answer, and she harshly bumps Di Mingju with her elbow. She purses her lips, which are still a little sore. She raises her hand, and the zither strings fly out. Before the black and white protectors and Liu Se could even react, the zither strings have already wrapped around the Ghost Lord, and with lightning speed, it drags him in front of Mu Yang. "Ghost Lord," the black and white protectors bellow, wanting to rush over. Han Yi sneers, stepping forward and brandishing his sword. The two are immediately forced to retreat again and again. Almost at the same time, the stone chamber's door opens, and countless ghost envoys flock in, surrounding Mu Yang and the others. "Did you see? These people deliberately sneaked into the Ghost Wind Valley to murder the Ghost Lord." Liu Se grits her teeth and roars, but her eyes flash with a sinister light. "The one who killed the Ghost Lord is this fake doctor, Mu Yang. I didn't expect that I would be fooled by this vicious woman. This woman killed the Ghost Lord under the guise of treating his illness, and also wanted to silence me. Now, she doesn't even want to let the Ghost Lord's corpse go. Guardians, you must not let her off." Black Impermanence and White Impermanence coldly look at Mu Yang, and they shout in unison, "You'd better hurry up and return the Ghost Lord's corpse. I might be able to leave your corpse intact." However, Mu Yang did not care about their threats. She squatted down and looked at the Spirit King's corpse that was riddled with holes. She sighed and said, "TSK TSK, the dignified Spirit King has become someone else's puppet. It's really miserable. But Ghost King Liu, shouldn't you know better than anyone else how the Ghost King died?" Liu Se's complexion flashed, and then with a coarse and unpleasant voice, she angrily roared, "What nonsense are you talking about? It's obvious that you killed the Ghost King. The many wounds on his body are the best evidence." "Heh." Mu Yan's smile is full of ridicule. "I don't dare to guarantee Ghost King Liu's other abilities, but when it comes to lying through your teeth, that is truly unparalleled." As she spoke, she looked at the black and white protectors. "You've been staying by the Ghost King's side all this time. Didn't you notice that there's something strange about his illness?" "What's strange?" Protector Black asked subconsciously. Chapter 542. Mu Yan slightly narrows her eyes, her expression unfathomable. Her sweet-sounding voice is clearly transmitted to everyone's ears. "The time you've been in contact with Ghost King Liu can't be considered short. You wouldn't tell me that you don't know that Ghost King Liu is most proficient in GU poisons, right?" The black and white protectors were shocked when they heard this, and they looked at the Ghost King's corpse together. Because the Ghost King was knocked down when he was attacking Mu Yang, the black nails that he had extended out had not yet retracted. It really looked like he had been poisoned. A trace of panic flashes across Liu Se's face, and she immediately shouts, "Jun Mu Yan, you have such a vicious method. You were the one who poisoned the Ghost King, rendering him unable to resist, and then you cruelly killed him. Now you want to frame me? Do you dare to say that the bloody holes on the Ghost King's body were not caused by you?" Mu Yang nodded without hesitation. "That's right, the injuries on the Ghost King's body were caused by me. He was controlled by you to attack me. Shouldn't I retaliate? Did you hear that?" Liu Se immediately looked towards the black and white protectors, and said loudly, "No matter what the Ghost King had experienced before, the person who killed the Ghost King was her, and it was also this bitch who harmed me to this state. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and get someone to tear them to pieces." The black and white protectors frown tightly, and finally look coldly at Mu Yan. "Since you admit that the fatal wound on the Ghost Lord's body was caused by you, that means that you killed the Ghost Lord. You must die. Heh, fool." Mu Yan sneers, "The people around the Ghost Lord are all idiots like you. It's no wonder that he fell for someone's trick so easily." With a flick of her wrist, a dagger appeared in her hand, and before anyone could react, the dagger appeared in her hand. He raised his hand and the saber fell. The sharp saber and sword suddenly pierced through the body of the Ghost King. There was dead silence. Soon after, the eyes of the black and white protectors almost bulged out of their sockets, and they rushed towards Mu Yang like a madman. Slut, you dare? However, before their attacks can reach Mu Yan, suddenly, a silver light flashed. A silver needle pierced the Ghost King's heart and was then pulled out from the wound that the dagger had just made. Then, everyone saw a terrifying crimson bug struggling on the tip of the silver needle. A pair of cold inorganic compound eyes kept looking at everyone around him. His mouth opened and closed, and it was as if he could see the sticky flesh inside. Blurg. Some low-level ghost servants couldn't help but vomit as their stomachs churned. The black and white protectors' attacks come to an abrupt halt, stopping less than a meter away from Mu Yang. What is this? The two of them asked in shock. Why would such a terrifying insect be taken out from the Ghost King's heart? Mu Yan disdainfully glances at them. This is the Three Corpses GU, a Three Corpses GU that has absorbed the Ghost King's blood essence. Just a little bit more and I'll become the king of all GU. Ghost King Liu, don't tell me that you don't recognize this thing. Liu Se sneered, Jun Mu Yan, you don't need to frame me again and again. Even if the Ghost Lord has the Three Corpses GU, it's still your poison. What does it have to do with me? If I could use the Three Corpses GU on the Ghost King, how would I end up like this? Black and white guardians, you must not be deceived by this sinister and ruthless woman. Chapter 543. It's really Liu Se and Jun Mu Yan's argument that they're in the right. For a moment, they're unable to distinguish who the real murderer of the Ghost Lord is. TSK, Ghost King Liu, I can't help but admire you. You really won't shed a tear until you see the coffin. Mu Yan smiles as she gently shakes her head, her expression leisurely and charming. Then how about this? How about we let the Ghost Lord personally tell you who killed the Ghost Lord? As soon as her voice falls, there's already a bottle of draft in her hand, and she quickly pours it on the still struggling Three Corpses GU. When it comes into contact with the draft, the Three Corpses GU seems to be burning, and it suddenly makes a strange ear-piercing sound. Immediately after, its originally round body quickly becomes thinner, turning into a thick red liquid that drips onto the Ghost Lord's wound. This series of actions is like moving clouds and flowing water. Everyone watching stares blankly. Liu Se's complexion suddenly pales, the blood in her body churning, her eyes filled with fear and resentment. The Three Corpses GU has been burned. How could the mother GU in her body not be affected? But in the end, she still manages to endure it, and hisses, Jun Mu Yan, don't talk nonsense and try to struggle on your deathbed. The Ghost Lord has already died, you killed him, how could he come back to life? Cough, 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 cough. Liu Se still hasn't finished her words. The corpse lying on the ground suddenly lets out a heart-wrenching cough, and abruptly sits up from the ground. It's as if someone has pressed the pause button in the entire stone room. Everyone, including Han Yi, are dumbfounded. That's because the corpse that's sitting up is the Ghost Lord. The Ghost Lord actually came back to life. Under the illumination of the candlelight, the ash-black corpse-like complexion slowly turns weak and pale. The lifeless eyes slowly focus, finally falling on everyone in the stone room. Even in the quiet stone room, one can still hear his heavy breathing and muffled groans from his wound. Ghost, Ghost. Ghost Lord, you're still alive. After a long silence, the black and white protectors suddenly rush over, kneeling down beside the Ghost Lord. All the ghost envoys in the room seem to react now, and they all kneel down, paying respect to the Ghost Lord. Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. Suddenly, there's a scream of fear in the room, aren't you already dead? He should have died when he was corroded by the Three Corpse GU. Why are you still alive? How could you have survived? Liu Se, who had lost both her hands, had a face full of fright. She shook her head with all her might, as if she had gone insane. Hearing this, the black and white protectors turned their heads and glared at her fiercely. The ghost envoys in the room also abruptly changed their positions, trapping her firmly in the middle. Liu Se's words could be said to be a complete admission that she was the one who harmed the Ghost Lord. Gu crawls up from the ground, but he doesn't pay any attention to Liu Se. Instead, he looks at Mu Yan. Many thanks for saving my life, miss. Before he could finish speaking, Jiu Yu's line of sight unconsciously stops on Di Mingju's face, and his body suddenly freezes. Jun 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 Lord! He shrieked in disbelief. Then, before his brain could react, his knees had already softened and he knelt down with a thud. Jiu Yu of the Heaven Division, under the command of the leader of the Wind Demon Army, pays his respects to the Lord. Liu Se, who had fallen into a heavy encirclement, was originally thinking about how she could get out of her current predicament. Chapter 544. She has always known that the Ghost City used to be the property of the Polar Domain. She also knows that Han Yi and Ying Mai came from the Shoshian continent, from the Polar Domain. Liu Se had even guessed, who is this man that's so powerful that it makes her tremble at Muyan's side? He's an elder of the Polar Domain, or a high-level official of the Polar Domain. But she never thought that Di Mingju would be that person. Even in the Shoshian continent, he's a ruler that no one can reach. That man that even the sect master of the Tianyi men barely qualifies to be on an equal footing. How could Di Mingju be the sovereign of the Polar Domain? How could a supreme ruler of the Polar Domain appear in such a barren land like the Yenwu continent? But besides the Polar Domain's sovereign, who else could Jiu call Jun Shong? Only at this moment does true despair and alarm rise from the bottom of Liu Se's heart, making her body, which is no longer cold, feel as if it has fallen into an icehouse, uncontrollably trembling. Opposing the sovereign of the Polar Domain, what kind of end will she fall into? On the other side, after Jiu receives the order to get up, he can't help but glance at Muyan. Soon after, he seems to think of something, and his eyes suddenly widen. Don't tell me, you are our Polar Domain's future mistress, Miss Jun Muyan? The corner of Muyan's mouth twitches. Who is your Polar Domain's future mistress? Don't casually claim relationships, alright? But before Muyan can refute, Han Yi is already boasting shamelessly on the side, laughing. Nonsense, apart from our madam, who else would have such superb medical skills to be able to bring you back from the gates of hell? I was still worried that if you really died, Jiu, how would I explain it to that guy Feng Shuo when I return? I didn't expect that you'd become a corpse, but our madam's miraculous hands would actually bring you back to life. Saying that, he slaps Jiu's back. Idiot, what are you still standing there for, still not greeting Miss Jun? Jiu abruptly comes back to his senses, and promptly bows and kneels. Greetings to Miss Jun, no, greetings to madam. Soon after, he looks at Di Mingju with adoration. When he first heard Han Yi say that Jun Shong had fallen in love with a mortal woman from Yenwu continent, Jiu still felt it was strange. He even thought that a mortal woman couldn't be a match for their wise and divine Jun Shong. But now, they know how good their Jun Shong's foresight is. He says with heartfelt gratitude, if it weren't for Jun Shong's discerning eyes being like a torch, choosing madam, this subordinate's life would have been lost in this Yenwu continent. Shut up. Muyan couldn't bear it any longer. Who's your wife? Di Mingju, aren't you going to control your subordinates? Di Mingju steps forward and grabs her waist. His voice is clear and cold as he carelessly says, Madam, you can wait until Muyan and I are married before you call me that. There's no hurry. Yes, my lord. Mu Yang. What the hell, no hurry. Di Mingju, can you be even more shameless? Seeing that Mu Yang has flown into a rage out of humiliation, Han Yi promptly says, Jiu, don't talk nonsense, hurry up and handle the matters of the Ghost City. You're really regressing the more you live. You were actually tormented to such a state by a mere King Yang Luo. Hearing this, Jiu's expression abruptly became cold, and he slowly turned around to look at Liu Se, his eyes bursting with a cold and fierce light. Chapter 545. After hiding under my hands for so many years, even I didn't realize that you were actually from the Shoshian continent. I treated you as a loyal subordinate, trusted you, and delegated power to you. I didn't expect that you would actually repay me by placing the 3-corpse GU on me. You people of Tianyi men really have good moral conduct, good ability. Liu Se firmly clenches her teeth, but doesn't pay attention to Jiu's interrogation. Instead, he abruptly looks towards Di Mingju. Di Jun, do you know that this woman, Jun Muyan, is a god? Before she could finish her words, Mingju has already swung his palm high up in the air. With a loud bang, it was as if gunpowder had exploded on Liu Se's face. Immediately, half of her already pitted face was badly mutilated. No one knew what she wanted to say. They only thought that she was struggling on her deathbed. But Mu Yang suddenly turned his head to look at the man beside him, his expression uncertain. Of course, she knew that what Liu Se wanted to say just now was, she was a Shun musician. Then why did Mingju interrupt Liu Se? Could it be that Mingju already knows her identity as a Shun musician? No, impossible. Didn't they say that the people of the three realms wanted the Shun musicians dead? If Mingju knew about it, why wouldn't he catch her instead of helping her? Liu Se, it's already come to this, and you still want to splash dirty water on Miss Jun. Yu obviously doesn't know what Liu Se wants to say, he just sneers and steps forward. Since you are my subordinate king of hell, then today I will personally end you. At this time, even Liu Se's lips and tongue are badly mutilated from the beating. She can't speak, but her eyes seem to be glued to Muyan. His eyes were filled with hatred and disbelief. Suddenly, she opened her bloody mouth and laughed. The laughter was rough and unpleasant. Hearing this laughter, Mu Yang suddenly had an ominous premonition. As if to verify his hunch, Mingju's complexion abruptly changes. He waves his hand in the air, and a frightening pressure and energy engulfs the entire stone house. The tables, chairs, and beds in the stone house all let out crackling sounds as they shattered one by one. Jiuyu's sword was sent out like a bolt of lightning. However, all of them were still a step too late. At that critical moment, Liu Se's body actually burned with a glaring flame. In just a short period of time, her body had been completely incinerated. Almost at the same time, a dark red light soared into the sky and disappeared from the stone room. This sudden turn of events caught everyone off guard. Han Yi's complexion turns pale inch by inch, his voice trembling as he mutters, "It's the sect-destroying exterminating sacrifice, Tian Yi Men's unique skill, sect-destroying exterminating sacrifice." He abruptly looks towards Mingju, his expression aghast. "Jun Shong, what should we do? She must have returned to Tian Yi Men." Sect annihilation was a unique skill of the Tian Yi Men. When one's life was in danger, one could return to the altar of the headquarters of the Tian Yi Men by burning the soul. However, even if he returned to the altar, he would only be able to survive for 2 to 4 hours at most. Moreover, after using sect annihilation, this person's soul would never be able to reincarnate and would suffer the pain of being torn apart by time and space. Therefore, whether it's Mingju or Han Yi, they didn't expect that Liu Se would actually stake it all on one throw, and use the sect annihilation extermination. In this way, Liu Se will undoubtedly die, but the secret of Muyan being a Shun musician will also be exposed in front of Tian Yi Men. Chapter 546. If the people of Tian Yi Men were to know that Muyan is the successor of the Shun musicians, then the consequences would be unthinkable. Mingju's complexion is ashen. He doesn't answer Han Yi's words, instead, he abruptly turns to look at Muyan. Muyan looks at him in astonishment, her heart inexplicably flustered. "What happened, Liu Se?" Before she could finish speaking, her waist tightened and she was forcefully pulled into the man's arms. Then, a scorching and domineering kiss landed. This kiss was short, but it was filled with endless plunder and invasion. When she lets go, it's only for a few short breaths, but Muyan feels that her legs are unsteady, and her red lips are numb. They were bitten. Mu Yang raises her head, wanting to complain, but she hears the man's low, hoarse voice. "Mu Yang, take good care of my body, and wait for me to come back." After saying that, the man's figure flashed and disappeared in an instant. At that moment, Mu Yang felt as if a piece of her heart was missing, empty. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something and her consciousness sank into the space. Sure enough, they find Mingju's lifeless body in deep sleep. This bastard, how could he enter her space without her permission? And what the hell is take care of my body? Ridiculing in her heart, Muyan's expression relaxes. With the Ghost King's guidance, they quickly left the stone chamber. As it turned out, after the stone chamber sank into the ground, it led directly into the underground labyrinth of the Ghost Hall. If no one led them in, even an inborn expert would be trapped to death. But at the same time, if they were to encounter danger, this was also the best place for the Ghost Wind Valley's people to hide. Moreover, the terrain of the Ghost Wind Valley was easy to defend and hard to attack, and there was also the poison smog as a cover. It was truly the best place to set up a base. Miss Jun. Just as Muyin is contemplating the merits of the Ghost Wind Valley, she suddenly hears Guyu's grateful voice. This subordinate is unable to repay your life-saving grace. If you don't mind, this Ghost Wind Valley and the ghost envoys in the valley are all gifted to Miss June. What do you think? Muyin stares blankly, almost suspecting that she misheard. Give me the Ghost Wind Valley. If I remember correctly, the Ghost Wind Valley has always been the core stronghold of the Ghost City. For you, its value even surpasses any Ghost City. Guyu chuckles and says, the Ghost City is originally our Polar Domain's property. This one is only managing it for these 100 years, that's all. But Miss Jun, you are our Polar Domain's future mistress. Not to mention just giving you an insignificant Ghost Wind Valley, if it weren't for the Ghost City's current situation being unclear, fearing that it would bring trouble to Miss Jun, there would be no harm in giving you the entire Ghost City. Yeah. Han Yi doesn't wait for Mu Yang to speak, he's already chiming in. Miss Jun, I've already told you, you only need to tell Jun Shong what you want. Even if it was the stars in the sky, he could pluck them for you, let alone a mere Ghost Wind Valley. We'll be family sooner or later, so don't stand on ceremony. Mu Yang, hihi, who's going to be friends with you sooner or later? Thank you so much. However, thinking that this Ghost Wind Valley that is easy to defend and hard to attack has actually become her stronghold, no matter how calm Mu Yang is, she can't help but smile. The Ink Camp and the Tianji unit under her command are expanding more and more, and the Taishu Battalion is also in the process of being established. Whether it's Tianyuan City or Wangjiang City, a small courtyard already can't accommodate these people. Chapter 547. Han Yi certainly knows that this gift is delivered to the bottom of Muyin's heart, and he smiles like he's asking for credit. Miss Jun, if you think that the Ghost Wind Valley doesn't sound good, it's better to change the name. Like, Ghastly Flame Valley, or something. Ming is a homonym for Di Mingju, and Yang is a homonym for Jun Muyin. Ghastly Flame Valley is the holy land that belongs to Di Mingju and Jun Muyin. Even if Muyin thinks with her knees, she knows what this guy Han Yi means. She rolls her eyes at this guy who wishes for the whole world to be in chaos, and slightly nods at Guu. In that case, it would be impolite of me to refuse. But this gift of the Ghost Wind Valley is really too big, I'm ashamed to accept it. As compensation, I will provide Ghost City with a large number of drafts and elixirs for auction, and Ghost City can take 30% of the market price as a processing fee. Guu stares blankly, but he doesn't have the time to speak. Magistrate Liu already cries out, oh my god, and he rushes over. Shinshudaran, are you serious? You're not only giving drafts, you're even allowing our Ghost City to sell those elixirs that you've refined? That's great. From now on, you are this old man's food and clothing, let this old man work like a cow or a horse for you. Guu and his black and white protectors stare at this scene, dumbstruck. In the end, Bai Watchang couldn't help but say, isn't it just drafts and elixirs? It's not like our Ghost City hasn't consigned them before. Even the elixirs refined by Heavenly Road Sect's Great Master Jian Feng were auctioned off by our Ghost City. Magistrate Liu, is there a need to make such a fuss? What do you guys know? At this moment, Magistrate Liu even forgets his seniority, making a big fuss. How can the elixirs and godly drafts refined by our Shinshudaran be mentioned in the same breath as those mundane things? Hihi, since the two protectors don't believe me, then Shinshudaran's medicine has been delivered, you mustn't fight with this old man over it. The black and white protectors are getting more and more amazed, but they soon become indifferent. Rest assured, isn't it just some elixirs? We don't even care about Jian Feng's 4th grade elixirs, why would we fight with you over these? However, after a period of time, the two of them would regret what they had said today until their intestines turned green. Guu originally wanted to say I don't need pills. He really doesn't care about any pills in the Yenwu continent. But he suddenly hears Han Yi sourly say from the side, you're really too lucky, Guy. I've been by Miss Junn's side, begging and pleading, but I could only get a few of them. You, Guy, don't need to do anything, and you can actually get a whole bunch of them. Guu. This time, he was really curious. There's no spiritual power in the Yenwu continent, so no matter how good the elixir refined is, it's only a semidan. Not to mention, even if it was a pill refined by a famous alchemy grandmaster in the cultivation world, they would never put it in their eyes. Could it be that the elixirs refined by Jun Muyan were really that magical? Sershan 2, can you only supply one batch? Magistrate Liu's excitement is over, and he's even more insatiable, throwing himself over to hug his thigh. In any case, you've already given it, why don't you give me a bit more? Especially that elixir that you refined, can you give me one right now? It's just like the one I ate. This old man is really too curious. Why can an elixir block an attack from a high-level pre-celestial practitioner? Chapter 548. In the main hall, Dr. Song and the others are still anxiously waiting. Seeing her come out, each and every one of them is immediately overjoyed. Little girl, are you all right? Dr. Song hurries over, looking Mu Yang up and down. After confirming that she's not seriously injured, he lets out a long sigh of relief. Mu Yang obediently lets them pull her around, as lovable as a real little girl, without a trace of impatience. These old seniors might be vain and selfish, but in the most critical time, they risked their lives to protect her. This is something that Mu Yang will never forget for the rest of her life. Nyang Qin. Holding the rabbit, Xiao Bao catches up from behind and grabs Mu Yang's hand. After coming out of the ghost hall's underground palace, Mu Yang releases Xiao Bao and the fat rabbit from the space. She doesn't know what the fat rabbit has discovered, but it suddenly ran away with Xiao Bao, only catching up now. Seeing the adorable little boy suddenly appear and call Mu Yang Nyang Qin, Dr. Song and the others are dumbfounded. Little girl, you actually have a son. This is my son, Xiao Bao. Mu Yang smiles faintly, taking Xiao Bao and pushing him forward. Xiao Bao, call me grandpa. Xiao Bao's little face is cold, but his voice is crisp and clear. Hello, grandpas. Ah. A group of old doctors who are over 50 years old suddenly feel like an arrow has struck their hearts. Their entire hearts are about to melt. How could there be such a cute baby in this world? Xiao Bao, come, this is the draft that Grandpa Song refined himself, I'm giving it to you. Xiao Bao, look, Grandpa Du's treasures are all here. What do you want as a greeting gift? Just pick it. In a split second, a group of enthusiastic old men surround an ice-cold baby. This scene was indescribably funny and strange. With great difficulty, Xiao Bao breaks free from the enthusiasm of the grandpas, and hides behind Mu Yang. His tightened little face revealed an expression of lingering fear, and he even secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Mu Yang is tickled by his cute little appearance. She bends down to pick him up, and gives him a peck on his tender little face. Just as she wants to ask her baby what he and the fat rabbit were up to, she hears Dr. Song say, "Little girl, your son is already so big, is he already married?" The father is. When he asked this question, Dr. Song was a little hesitant and angry. Because no matter how you look at it, Mu Yan's age is at most 20. Xiao Bao, on the other hand, was already 4 or 5 years old. In other words, when Mu Yang was pregnant with Xiao Bao, she was only 14 or 15 years old. Which man was so beastly? He actually laid his hands on such a young girl and even made her pregnant. On the side, Han Yi immediately indignantly nods his head in agreement. I don't know which murderer is one step ahead of their Jun Shong, laying his hands on such a young Miss June. He was simply a pervert, a scoundrel, and shameless. If he were to encounter any shameless man, he would definitely tear him into pieces. Mu Yang smiled casually and kissed Xiao Bao's face. That distant memory was indeed a humiliation to her, one that she could not bear to recall. But he gave her the most precious gift in the world. Just as she was about to answer, a figure stumbled in from outside the door, looking flustered and frightened. Help! 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 Ghost King, save me! Before he could finish speaking, the man dressed as a ghost fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. Chapter 549. As soon as it's sprayed out, these little black bugs seem to smell something delicious, and like lightning, they drill into everyone's body. Ah! What is this? Everyone in the great hall is in a state of panic, screams rising and falling one after another. The little bugs are about to crawl onto the doctor's bodies. Mu Yang's reaction is very fast. She immediately calls out the Tian Mo Qin, and the sound of the zither resounds. The divine hand weaving the heavens skill is launched in a flash. Those little black bugs are immediately blocked out of concealment. The Ghost King is also the first to react. He took a deep breath, and then suddenly spat out a mouthful of profound energy. That internal force reaches midair, and unexpectedly turns into a ball of flame, burning fiercely. After a few short breaths, the little bugs in the room have been completely burned away. But this unforeseen event is too unexpected. In the end, there are still a few ghost envoys and a doctor who are corroded by the little bugs. Inch by inch, their complexions turn pale, and it doesn't take long for them to fall to the ground, letting out painful moans. Mu Yang quickly gives the few people who have been corroded by the little bugs a draft, ensuring that the bugs in their bodies won't spread. But in these few short breaths, the little bugs in these people have already increased from 1 or 2 to over 100. Mu Yang is also somewhat helpless if she wants to get rid of them in a short time. What is this thing? Looking at the little bugs' corpses that have been burnt to black ash, Dr. Song and the others have extremely unsightly expressions, opening their mouths to vomit. Jiu Yu's expression is even more unsightly than theirs. It's Liu Se, damn it. This slut, before she died, she actually tricked all of us. Seeing everyone looking over in shock, Jiu Yu calmly explains, Liu Se's body should have been planted with the mother Jiu of the gold silkworm Jiu. The gold silkworm Jiu is a kind of Jiu unique to the Tianyi men of the Shoshen continent. Among the top 10 mystical Jiu of the Tianyi men, it can only be ranked at the bottom. But in the Yenwu continent, it's already an existence that defies the natural order. Because Liu Se made a mistake that year, the mother Jiu of the gold silkworm Jiu was planted and kicked into the Yenwu continent. Because the Yenwu continent doesn't have spiritual power, the gold silkworm Jiu can't be replenished. It begins to corrode Liu Se's body, turning her into a neither human nor ghost. In order to protect herself, Liu Se began to absorb the decaying corpse energy on her body, transforming it into devil energy for the golden silkworm Jiu to absorb. After hundreds of years of nourishment, the golden silkworm Jiu in Liu Se's body had already become an extremely yin and evil thing. Originally, when Liu Se, the host, died, it was reasonable to say that the golden silkworm Jiu should also have died. He did not expect that Liu Se had already released the mother of the golden silkworm Jiu before entering the stone room. Without a host, the mother Jiu would lose its nutrients and would immediately die. In order to survive, the golden silkworm Jiu began to split into countless child Jiu to absorb the nutrients it needed. If they did not stop it immediately, it would not be long before the entire Ghost Wind Valley would be devoured by the golden silkworm Jiu. Although without a host, the golden silkworm Jiu would not survive in the end, but all the people in the Ghost Wind Valley would be buried together with the golden silkworm Jiu. Thinking of this possibility, Jiu wished that he could dismember Liu Se, that slut's body, into 10,000 pieces, and hack her to pieces. Everyone's expression did not look any better. In Jiu narration, he skims over the parts related to the Shoshen continent and the Tianyi men. But just by looking at the terrifying devouring and reproduction speed of the golden silkworm goose children, one could tell how terrifying this thing was. Chapter 550. Jiu and Han Yi look at each other, their brows wrinkling even tighter. There's only one way to resolve the current crisis, and that is to find the location of the gold silkworm mother Jiu, and then kill it. However, the mother Jiu of the golden silkworm Jiu is not afraid of water and fire. It is as hard as iron, and its body is so small that it can't be seen, but every inch of its skin has a corrosive poison. Even if we find it, we won't be able to get rid of it in a short period of time. And this period of time is enough for the golden silkworm Jiu to control its child Jiu to invade the entire Ghost Wind Valley. For a moment, The entire hall was silent. Everyone's hearts felt heavy, as if a huge rock was pressing down on them. Even Mu Yang was at a loss for what to do. She could kill the parasitic child Jiyu in these people, but if the golden silkworm Jiyu was not eliminated, the speed at which she killed the child Jiyu would definitely not be able to keep up with the reproduction speed of the mother Jiyu. In the hall, the cheerful atmosphere from before was completely swept away. Everyone had a worried look on their faces. At this time, the entire Ghost Wind Valley outside must have been completely occupied by the child Jiyu. If they appeared now, they would definitely die. For someone with a profound cultivation like Muyin, she might be able to ensure that she wouldn't be eroded by the child Jiyu. But he could not protect everyone in the Ghost Wind Valley. From time to time, miserable screams could be heard coming from outside. That was the sound of the ghost messengers being swallowed by the Jiyu when they were caught off guard. What should I do? How can I find the golden silkworm Jiyu? Muyin is frowning in contemplation, when suddenly, the fat rabbit in Xiao Bao's arms darts out. Bunny, don't run around. Xiao Bao shouted and hurriedly followed. The fat rabbit pulled out a round golden bug from the corner of the hall's entrance. This insect was very beautiful, completely different from those ugly Jiyu insects with cold compound eyes. When the wings on its back gently flapped, they would also emit a sparkling light. The fat rabbit looked at the golden bug, and its mung-bean eyes lit up. Without waiting for Xiao Bao to reach it, it opened its mouth and swallowed the golden bug. Bunny, you're eating random things again. Xiao Bao reprimanded unhappily. Mother said that eating unclean things will cause diarrhea. As if to confirm Xiao Bao's words, the fat rabbit's face suddenly twisted. His expression was as if he had swallowed a pile of feces or a fly. Then, he opened his mouth and spat out the golden bug. How disgusting. There was a putrid smell. It was different from what it had eaten before. The fat rabbit wriggled its round body and rubbed its little master's trousers for comfort. Xiao Bao picked it up and was about to scold it again. Jiyu seems to suddenly wake up, shrieking, "Gold silkworm Jiyu. What? This is the golden silkworm Jiyu? You mean, if we kill this golden silkworm Jiyu, we will be saved?" Everyone gathered around him. Ghost King Jiyu took out a small cover and covered the air, trapping the golden insect that was originally trying to escape. Following that, everyone present thought of various methods. Burning, using water smoke, chopping, frying, poisoning. They had almost exhausted all the methods they could think of, but they just couldn't do anything to this tiny golden bug. And because the golden silkworm mother Jiyu was attacked, the external child Jiyu multiplied crazily. Chapter 551. Outside the sound wall, there's a dense mass of black bugs that make people's hair stand on end. It can be said that as long as this sound wall is broken, the person inside will almost certainly die. And no matter how high Muyin's cultivation is, no matter how thick her internal force is, it's not endless. As time goes by, the gold silkworm Jiyu remains unscathed, but Muyin's complexion is already slightly pale. Xiao Bao looks distressed at his mother's slightly sweaty face, then looks at her fingers plucking the zither strings. He suddenly carries the fat rabbit to the front of the gold silkworm Jiyu. "Bunny, eat it." The fat rabbit desperately shakes its head. "No, no. It stinks. Bunny doesn't like it." Xiao Bao fishes out an elixir from the storage space that Di Mingju gave him, and says with an expressionless face, "Eat it, these jelly beans are all yours." Seeing the elixir in Xiao Bao's small hands, the mung bean's eyes brighten. These elixirs are the highest quality elixirs that Muyin refined using the cloud giving birth to sea binding. There's a world of difference between them and the vein shield Dan that she refined in the main hall without using her shun musician skills. Moreover, she can only refine 3 to 5 at a time. After refining once, she can't use the cloud giving birth to sea binding skill again for 3 days. Of these godly elixirs that Muyin refined, apart from Han Yi pestering her for a few, the rest are all given to Xiao Bao to eat as jelly beans. Xiao Bao treasures these elixirs very much. Usually, he's only willing to give 1 or 2 to the fat rabbit. But this time, in order to share his mother's worries, he takes out all the jelly beans. With the jelly beans as bait, The fat rabbit jumps to the ground without hesitation, and flips over Guu's cover with one claw. Hey, stupid rabbit, what are you doing? What if that gold silkworm Gu runs away? Seeing its actions, someone immediately shouts and shouts. The fat rabbit glares at the person speaking in a bad mood. You're the stupid rabbit, your whole family are stupid rabbit. Soon after, it smacks its little mouth, slightly inhaling. With a whoosh, the gold silkworm Gu flies into its mouth without any resistance. The fat rabbit's face distorts once again, wanting to vomit out the stinky stuff it swallowed. But when it remembers those fragrant jelly beans, it forcibly restrains itself. Everyone was dumbfounded by this scene. Afterwards, Guu abruptly recovered. Little Lord, quickly make the rabbit spit out the golden silkworm Gu. The golden silkworm Gu's entire body is poisonous and can corrode the majority of living beings under the heavens. If you don't spit it out, I'm afraid your rabbit will. He did not finish his sentence. The bugs that were crawling on the sound wall of Divine Hands Weaves Heaven started to self-combust one after another. In just a few short breaths, more than half of the bugs that had covered the entire sound wall had disappeared. Everyone in the hall was dumbfounded. After a while, even the few people who were moaning on the ground slowly opened their eyes. Their pale faces slowly regained their vitality. No, it can't be. Guyu looks at the fat rabbit, then looks at Xiao Bao, one of the magnificent Tianyi men's 10 great exotic poisons. The golden silkworm Gu was actually eaten by a rabbit. On the contrary, Han Yi isn't that surprised. Because he already knew that this rabbit was not simple. He, truly worthy of being their polar domain's future mistress and future successor, even the spirit pet she raises is so special. Burp tilde 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 tilde. Just as everyone is feeling happy and at a loss, the fat rabbit burps. Chapter 552. An intoxicating stench instantly pervades the entire hall. Ooh tilde tilde, it stinks. What's this smell? This old man is going to throw up last night's dinner. Quickly go outside and hide. Even Xiao Bao runs with his short legs, scurrying to Mu Yang's side, hiding behind her shrinking sound wall. With the sound wall's obstruction, the stench can't come in, and Xiao Bao breathes a long sigh of relief. The fat rabbit is angered to death, stomping its feet on the spot and howling at the same time. The little master is too much. The rabbit obediently ate the bug, but the little master actually dislikes it. Woo woo woo. The fat rabbit covers its furry round face with its paws, crying very sadly. Mu Yang snorts out a laugh. The notes under her fingers move, and in a split second, a gust of wind sweeps through the entire hall. After a moment, the stench that had just filled the air disappears without a trace. Mu Yang leads Xiao Bao to the fat rabbit's side, grabbing its collar and lifting it up. She chuckles. All right, don't pretend, the benefits of the gold silkworm Gu aren't small. I see that your body has become round again. The fat rabbit twists its round body and snorts. This rabbit is a noble mythological beast. It won't eat anything, especially this stinky thing. Even if it's good for it, this rabbit will disdain to eat it. Ba ba ba. What rabbit? It's not a rabbit at all. Rabbit, these are for you. Xiao Bao holds the elixirs with both hands and delivers them to the fat rabbit. The fat rabbit's eyes brighten, and it immediately forgets its sadness from just a moment ago. It howls and jumps into Xiao Bao's arms. Its fat paw grabs a jelly bean and puts it in its mouth, then grabs another one and puts it in Xiao Bao's mouth. The two little guys happily play around. Mu Yang puts the two little guys back into the space, and then she asks Dr. Song and the others to come over. Seniors, I know that you've come all the way to the Ghost Wind Valley to learn the secret method of pill condensation. I don't know if you still want to learn alchemy now? As soon as this question is asked, all the doctors present widen their eyes. Dr. Jun, what do you mean by that? Are you willing to teach us alchemy? Could it be that we can also refine pills like yours? Mu Yang casually shook her head. The conditions for refining pills like mine are very harsh. I'm afraid that you won't be able to do it in a short period of time. In other words, as long as there's no spiritual power in the Yenwu continent, it's impossible. Everyone immediately hangs their heads in dejection, But they also know that Mu Yang is telling the truth. Her pill refining method was simply miraculous. It was unimaginable, so how could it be easily achieved? However, Shalanling and the others' core condensation secret method, I think I've probably touched the doorway. Mu Yang faintly smiles, throwing a heavy bomb at the dispirited doctors, without the help of GU worms, and without any special conditions. As long as a special technique is used, the pill can be condensed. Unfortunately, I can only refine pills below the 3rd grade, and the effects of the pills will be greatly reduced. I wonder if everyone wants to. Yes. Of course I do. Even if I can only refine 1st grade pills, I want to learn, not to mention 3rd grade and below. Chapter 553. Not waiting for Mu Yang to speak, Han Yi already sneers. My family's madam can refine an elixir that's 100 times better than this. This kind of worthless secret that can only refine a semidan, how could she take notice of it? Only you people would treat this broken thing as a treasure. Everyone. Although what you said is very true, but when the thing that you want is called a broken thing by someone else, no one would feel comfortable in their heart. Mu Yan casts a sidelong glance at Han Yi, coldly saying, "Who is your Furen?" Because he wanted to learn the core condensation mystic technique, plus the GU worms in Ghost Wind Valley had been cleared. Therefore, the doctors who were planning to leave decided to stay. After sending everyone away, Mu Yan directly enters the space. From the very beginning, she had been very concerned about one thing. That is her Tian Mo Qin. At her most critical moment, that strange man's voice, the person who broke through the limits of her body and activated the 7-sword spirit skill for her, who was it? After entering the space, Mu Yang sees that Xiao Bao has already fallen asleep while holding the fat rabbit. A small body nestles next to Di Mingju's body. Her small head is still resting on Di Mingju's arm. Mu Yan's face shows a smile as gentle as water. No matter how tit-for-tat Xiao Bao and Di Mingju usually show. But subconsciously, apart from himself, the person Xiao Bao was closest to and most dependent on was also him. After staring blankly for a while, Mu Yan takes the Tian Mo Qin and enters the tower. Fingers lightly plucking the strings, the corners of Mu Yan's mouth curl up in a faintly discernible arc. Since you've already shown yourself, what's the point of hiding? Aren't you going to come out and meet me? Little girl, do you know how many people in this world dare to speak to me like this? A low and clear voice sounded. Immediately after, a dazzling light shines on the zither in Mu Yan's hand. A figure slowly appeared in the empty tower. Mu Yan stares blankly at the gradually solidifying silhouette in front of her. Her mouth slowly forms an O shape because of her astonishment. In front of him was a young man who looked to be about 18 or 19 years old. His figure was tall and slender, and his posture was elegant. His face was like jade, and his lips were red and teeth white. It would not be an exaggeration to say that he was a stunning young man. For a man to possess such an appearance, I'm afraid only little Bao can rival him once he grows up, right? But such a beautiful young man kept saying this noble one and little girl. Mu Yang couldn't help but burst out laughing. The youth on the other side immediately frowned, his expression cold. However, such a gloomy expression, when made by him, was indescribably romantic, bright like the moonlight. Little girl, what are you laughing at? Cough, cough. Mu Yang held back her laughter, slightly raising her eyebrows. I see that you seem to be about the same age as me. Why do you keep calling me little girl? Are you taking advantage of me? The youth snorted coldly. Do you know how long this sovereign has existed for? How many years? When the 3 realms split, when the Yanwu, Xiuzhen, and Xiuxian continents were first formed, the Tian Mo Qin was already born along with the qi of heaven and earth. How many years do you think I have existed? Mu Yang's pupils slightly contracted. Who the hell are you? The youngster's gaze falls on the Tian Mo Qin in her hands. Didn't you already know? This deity is the spirit of the Tian Mo Qin, 7 brilliance. Chapter 554. Mu Yan's fingers gently stroke the slightly cool strings under her fingertips, her heart somewhat incredulous. She has only seen creatures like tool spirits in ancient books and legends. But she never thought that an inanimate object like a guqin would actually give birth to a living creature. You woman, shameless. While she's in a trance, she suddenly hears the youth's flustered and exasperated voice. Muyin looks up and sees that the handsome youth across from her has a flushed complexion, his coquettish eyes like silk. His originally beautiful complexion is faintly flushed because of his anger, making him look even more charming and seductive. Muyin reveals a blank expression. What about me? Saying that, her fingers subconsciously stroke the body of the guqin. Ooh! A low moan, like a sob, overflows from the youth's mouth, followed by an angry roar from shame. Woman, do you not know shame? How can you touch my body at will? Your body? Muyin murmurs and repeats it. Soon after, she lowers her head, her fingers fiddling on the strings again. She sees the youth across from her let out another muffled groan, his sparkling and translucent jade-like skin flushing a sweet pink. Even though he's angry, sometimes he's smiling, sometimes he's angry and affectionate. Wait a minute. Muyin dumbfoundedly retracts her hand. You don't mean that, when I touch the guqin, it's the same as touching you, right? Qi Huang fiercely glares at her. Woman, I'm warning you, your hand better behave for me, you're not allowed to touch Benzun's body, do you hear me? Muyin is sluggish for a long time before she comes back to her senses, but this Tianmo Qin is my weapon of attack, I can't just not touch it forever, can I? Moreover, when I played the guqin before, I didn't see you have any reaction. That's because Benzun was originally inside the Tianmo Qin, fused with the body of the guqin, and didn't have the feeling of being a tool spirit. Qi Huang grits his teeth. You remember this, when Benzun is outside, you're not allowed to touch that guqin, do you hear me? Otherwise, Benzun will tear you into pieces. The young man in front of him threatened him viciously, but his appearance was just too beautiful. Not only is his threat unconvincing, it makes Muyin's hands itch to pinch his face. However, in the end, she still holds back the urge to laugh. With a wave of her hand, she puts away the Tianmo Qin, saying, why didn't you appear before? Do all the previous masters of the Tianmo Qin know of your existence? Humph, what kind of joke is this? Do you think that just anyone can make this exalted acknowledge him as his master? Qi Huang gives her a disdainful look. In these past thousands of years, the only people who have seen me are only two. One is the founder of the Shun musicians Bailey Liuyin 1,000 years ago, and the other is you. For thousands of years, the Tianmo Qin has been used by countless people. Even the later descendants of the Shun musicians can use it. However, after Bailey Liuyin, no one else was able to summon 7 brilliants. Because to 7 brilliants, those masters' blood wasn't hot enough, their souls weren't clear and solid enough, and their minds weren't tough enough. How could a mere mortal be qualified to be his master? Hence, after Bailey Liuyin's death, Qi Huang had fallen into a deep slumber. Even after the destruction of the Shun musicians, he did not wake up. Until Muyin's boiling hot blood is poured on the body of the zither. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.